China and Malaysia are two nations that have one of the deepest historical relations in the entire Asian continent, which is presumably the influencing factor to the emergence of the great relationship the two nations have formed today. According to government public information, in 2021, Malaysia and China had a bilateral trade volume that is estimated to be over $176.8 billion, making China one of Malaysia's biggest trading partners ever. This annual trade alone is truly a huge contributor to Malaysia's economy, which is estimated to be about $439 billion in normal GDP. Furthermore, China is also amongst the largest sources of foreign direct investments within Malaysia. In 2021, the year Malaysia received its largest bulk of foreign investments, estimated to be about $69 billion. China has emerged as the third largest source, investing around $7 billion, which is just behind Singapore and the Netherlands. But more previous data has also shown that China has consistently been a large source of investments, like in 2020, when they were the largest source of investments, more than the next two combined when they paved the way for over $4 billion. These investments are so profound that the Malaysian Investment Development Authority has said that these Chinese-led investments had paved the way for close to 50,000 job opportunities within the borders of Malaysia. Furthermore, the majority of these investments in recent years have been linked to Malaysia's manufacturing sector, which is a key destination for the country. This is because manufacturing has played an important role in driving economic growth for Malaysia. They had emerged as amongst the largest in several subcategories, and one that is well known in its role within the solar energy field. A separate study was also published in the International Journal of China Studies, done by individuals coming from Malaysia's prominent universities. The study, which was done in 2021, had found that there was a link between China's foreign investments affecting Malaysia's to be more export-oriented, hence pushing their economic growth much higher. Such a key formulation of relationships had rather been argued as being formed way back throughout their deep historical relations with one another. It is well reported throughout their different evidence articles that show the Malaysian and Chinese people were in contact around the 3rd century BC, and further records have shown throughout the 5th to the 7th century AD when Malaysia and China had begun trading. This led to the influx of knowledge of each other and paved the way for further collaboration throughout history. It is said that the Sultanate of Malacca had officially established political and economic ties with the Ming dynasty of China. Fast forward to the 14th century and all the way to the 19th century, the Great Chinese Immigration began. It sparked the rise of Malaysian Chinese, or Peranakans. It was a wave that helped form Malaysia's economy and population to grow extraordinarily. Known to be the descendants of southern Chinese immigrants, they form approximately around 6.7 million people in Malaysia today, which is approximately 22.4% of the entire population. Their roots in the economy of Malaysia are even more surprising after a book written by a professor published in 2000 that indicated Chinese Malaysians managed a whopping 75.8% of the economy in 1991. Further documents have also shown that the majority of Malaysia's richest people throughout its modern history from the 1970s till today shows that Chinese or Chinese descendants were amongst the richest people in the entire population, holding about 45.5% of the total equity ownership in the entire Malaysian business sector is a likely huge part of how Malaysia has emerged to become such a strong economy. This is why we think the nation of China that stands today has become a large contributor to Malaysia's trade and foreign investments. When official diplomatic relations were established in 1974, the two nations that lacked communication and connection with each other, previously led by the onslaught of the Cold War, had immediately grown close in their political, cultural, and economic ties. This subsequently led Malaysia to become one of China's largest trading partners across the entire continent of Asia. Just 3 decades later, after their official diplomatic treaty, their bilateral trade volume in 2003 would rise up to about $20 billion, to which China would go on to be the larger importer, taking in around $13.99 billion. By 2008, however, the two-way trade would rise up to about $37 billion, almost double the growth in just 5 years. These would all suggest that the rise of the two nations' bilateral relationships have grown tremendously, especially within the 21st century period. These were in some ways also affected by China's overseas business connection known as the Bamboo Network, which is a framework that helped establish larger economic collaboration between the two nations and along with the rest of Southeast Asia. With such deep roots with one another, it has created a more favorable investment landscape, one of which is well known throughout the world and mostly within Malaysia is China's Belt and Road Initiative. According to the framework, so far has seen from 2014 to 2018 an investment that totals about $15.8 billion, which gave way to projects such as the East Coast Rail Link, a 665-kilometer standard gauge railway line to be built, an endeavor that stretches from Kota Baru all the way to Port Klang. Further projects introduced within the Belt and Road Initiative ranges from energy projects to smart cities, such as Bandar Malaysia and the $100 billion project Forest City, which is amongst the world's largest and most ambitious mega projects ever. And these are just quite frankly linked to a lot more of other pipeline projects. These, however, were mostly either cancelled or postponed, with only a few that actually made it to see the full light of day. What had happened? Well, issues with the project itself, as some say, are either cost or the complexity of constructing billion-dollar initiatives. From the general looks of it, the government of Malaysia, which had changed, had rather looked differently over such complex and overpriced megaprojects. This may have influenced the brains of the top leaders because of several allegations within the Belt and Road Initiative itself, such as bringing a nation's debt to sky high. But this is a subjective statement and cannot really be argued on a short video basis alone. Frankly, however, these bilateral special or so relationships have also been seen as quite a distraught by some across the Malaysian population. Since the inception of their diplomatic treaty, a group of Malaysians has seen China lending support through communist parties around Southeast Asia and likely some in Malaysia as well. Further, some higher elites of Malaysia have also voiced distrust of the Chinese military affairs. These have likely to have happened because of China's growing role as an economic superpower and, along with its cash-rich nation, a formidable military force, which has emerged today as one of the single largest issues in Southeast Asia, known as the South China Sea territorial dispute. A problem that was once forgotten in the past has become somewhat of a problem to Malaysia today, as the Chinese are found to consistently violate treaties after treaties. Because of these Chinese-led military problems, it might occur to Malaysia that they may need to rely on pushing for a stronger and better military force within the nation's borders, hence separating the need to invest in other initiatives such as education and healthcare and pushing the money into military and defense equipment. Not a bad move, but not the best either. But it has also been noted that over the past decades, Malaysia, unlike its neighboring Southeast Asian nations, has been very quiet and has shunned confrontational rhetoric towards China. It has also been found as one of the most critics of the AUKUS alliance, a treaty that aims to build nuclear weapon submarines between the US, UK, and Australia, to which they had cited it raises regional tensions. Moreover, these are also not the only issues pertaining to the political relationship between Malaysia and China. Countless more problems arise, as China has consistently been the center of issues in modern history. With consistent issues and the backing of strong bilateral relations, it is no wonder that some may say that they see the two nations' economic and political ties are always on the verge of collapse. Well, that, in all honesty, is applied in almost every nation with relations to China. Every country with a strong reliance on Chinese trade and investments has also found itself to have issues with Asia's largest economy, whether that is through military forces or citing debt burdens and over-complexed loan interest rates. Regardless of the consistent issues, China will likely not overstep its boundaries and sacrifice its fast-growing economy for some trivial means. The future of Malaysia and China, however, is presumably in the hands of the government of Malaysia. Whoever sits in the leadership role will likely lead whatever happens in the future. This is because we have seen that different leaders in Malaysia's government had looked at China's role in the nation quite differently.